Persistent muscle soreness is not a sign of productive training. It is a signal from the body that something in the recovery equation is broken, and most people are misreading it entirely. If this is your first time here, subscribe and share this with someone who treats soreness as a measure of workout quality and has never had the biology behind it explained accurately enough to change that perspective. This channel is built around the level of detail that actually shifts outcomes, not surface-level advice that leaves the real problem in place. There is a particular kind of person who wears soreness like a badge. They finished a hard session, they feel it the next day, and that discomfort is interpreted as confirmation that the training did what it was supposed to do. Soreness equals results. No soreness means the session was not hard enough. This relationship between discomfort and productivity has been reinforced so consistently in fitness culture that questioning it feels almost like questioning the value of effort itself. But the relationship is wrong. And the people who are always sore, not occasionally sore from a genuinely novel stimulus, but chronically sore, carrying residual soreness from session to session without it fully clearing, are not the people whose training is working best. They are the people whose recovery is working least. Chronic, persistent soreness is not evidence of exceptional training. It is evidence of a broken recovery system, a body that is being asked to manage an inflammatory load it cannot fully resolve before the next training session arrives to add to it. And the reasons that recovery system is failing are specific, correctable, and almost never the ones most people would identify on their own. What soreness actually is, the biology most people have backwards delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, is one of the most misunderstood phenomena in exercise physiology. Not because the science is unclear, but because the popular explanation of it is incomplete in ways that drive the exact behaviors that perpetuate it. Soreness is an inflammatory response. When muscle tissue experiences mechanical disruption, particularly during the eccentric phase of resistance exercise, when the muscle is being lengthened under load, microscopic structural damage occurs at the level of the contractile proteins inside the muscle fiber. The body's immune system responds by initiating an inflammatory cascade. White blood cells flood the area, cytokines are released, and the tissue undergoes the same basic repair sequence that follows any injury to any tissue in the body. The soreness felt 24 to 72 hours after training is the sensory experience of this inflammatory process, not the damage itself, which occurred during the session, but the tissue's subsequent immune response as it identifies and repairs the disrupted structures. This process is necessary and productive when it runs to completion. The repair leaves the tissue slightly more structurally capable than it was before the damage, the foundational mechanism of muscle adaptation. But the word completion is doing significant work in that sentence. The repair cycle requires time, substrate, and the physiological conditions in which inflammatory resolution can proceed efficiently. When those conditions are absent, when the repair cycle is interrupted by another training session before it finishes, when the nutritional substrate for repair is insufficient, when sleep is curtailed and the hormonal environment for recovery is suboptimal, the inflammatory response does not resolve. It accumulates. Chronic soreness is accumulated, unresolved inflammation. The body is not failing to recover quickly because the training is exceptionally productive. It is failing to recover fully because the conditions for recovery are systematically insufficient. The sleep debt that is driving the inflammation. The most significant and least addressed driver of chronic training soreness is the variable that operates furthest from the gym, and the one most people are most reluctant to examine because improving it requires changing habits that feel unrelated to training outcomes. Sleep is not a passive recovery state. It is the primary active repair environment for every biological system the body runs on, and for the muscle tissue damaged by training, it is specifically the period during which the repair process is most efficiently executed. During deep slow-wave sleep, growth hormone is released at its peak daily concentration. Growth hormone directly stimulates satellite cell activity, the proliferation and fusion of the stem cells that donate nuclei to damaged muscle fibers and enable the structural repair and growth that training is designed to produce. It also promotes the synthesis of collagen and other structural proteins in connective tissue. And it drives the resolution of the inflammatory state that produces soreness, coordinating the transition from the pro-inflammatory phase of repair to the anti-inflammatory phase that clears the cellular debris and resolves the tissue back to baseline. When sleep is chronically insufficient, whether in duration, in depth, or in the regularity of sleep timing that governs circadian-dependent hormone release, growth hormone output is suppressed. The repair process proceeds, but more slowly, less completely, and with a less efficient transition through the inflammatory phases. The result is a body that carries a higher baseline inflammatory load day to day, that experiences more soreness from the same training stimulus than a well-rested individual would, and that begins the next training session with incomplete recovery from the previous one. The person who is always sore and sleeps 6 hours most nights is not experiencing exceptional training-induced soreness. They are experiencing the sensory consequence of an inflammatory accumulation that quality sleep would substantially resolve, and the training intensity they're attributing the soreness to is a secondary factor relative to the recovery deficit the sleep pattern is creating. 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep is not a lifestyle preference for people who train seriously. It is a physiological requirement for the inflammatory resolution that separates productive soreness from chronic soreness. The training structure problem. There is a third driver of chronic soreness that originates inside the training itself, not in any single session but in the architecture of the training week and the specific relationship between training stimulus and recovery allocation. The eccentric component of resistance exercise, the controlled lowering phase of every representative, is the primary driver of the mechanical disruption that initiates DOMS. This is well established. What is less commonly understood is that the magnitude of the eccentric stimulus is not only governed by load but by volume, the total number of eccentric reps performed across a session and across the week for each muscle group. High training volumes applied to a muscle group that has not been progressively exposed to that volume over time, a common occurrence when people significantly increase their weekly sets or introduce new exercises, produce eccentric damage that exceeds the body's current capacity to resolve within the standard recovery window between sessions. The muscle is sore before the next session. The next session adds new eccentric damage to tissue that has not finished repairing from the previous stimulus. The soreness accumulates rather than resolves. Conclusion. Persistent soreness is the body's honest report on the state of its recovery, and the message it is sending is not that the training is working exceptionally well. It is that the conditions required for recovery to complete are not being consistently provided. Address the sleep. Not as a lifestyle preference but as a physiological priority that governs the hormonal environment in which inflammation resolves. Address the nutritional gaps, protein for repair substrate, antioxidant-rich foods for inflammatory regulation, omega-3 sources for the resolution signaling the inflammatory cycle depends on. And address the training volume relative to the recovery capacity that currently exists, building both progressively rather than demanding more recovery than the system can provide. Soreness that clears completely between sessions, leaving the muscle feeling recovered, capable, and ready, is the sign of a recovery system functioning correctly. That state is not achieved by training less. It is achieved by training intelligently within the recovery capacity that exists and building both simultaneously. The goal is not to never be sore. The goal is to never be always sore, because a body that recovers completely between sessions is a body that arrives at every session ready to adapt, and a body that adapts consistently is a body that changes. That is what the effort deserves. If this reframes something you have been experiencing without understanding, subscribe and share this with someone who treats soreness as a performance metric and has never had the recovery biology explained accurately enough to reconsider it. This channel exists to give the real explanation, the one that actually changes how the information gets applied.